Hello everybody, welcome back. It's Business, and I'm doing a review today on the Gnevny, the Tier 5 Russian destroyer. And this is a nice looking model. Certainly looks a hell of a lot more, I guess modern is the right word, after seeing the Izyaslav. And I mean, that thing really just looks like a fishing trolley or something. But the Gnevny is a pretty interesting ship. I think it, my general consensus on it is that it fits a slot that the Minikaze and the Nicholas leave open. So I'll explain that as I go on, but mainly it's due to the guns and the short range torps. The way it behaves, the way it handles, and the way you play it is generally a bit different. It does have, I would say, relatively decent range, certainly more than the Minikaze, and if I remember correctly, roughly the same as the Nicholas. So you do have a nice advancement over the Izyaslav, which barely has like 100 and like what is that, 102, 103 millimeter guns. These are 130. I'm pretty sure this is standard fare from this point forward for the Russian DD line. Now you do have an interesting set of torps as well. They are 4 kilometer torps, and check this out: the least useful upgrade in the entire game. Same exact torpedoes, except for +1 knot on the torpedo speed. So I'm not entirely sure what the hell the point of that is, but generally these have I would say they have a surprising amount of ability in terms of the torpedo damage when you actually get close enough to be able to launch them, and once they hit. So don't underestimate them, but you just have to remember they are pretty quick, and because you're close, you're going to be working at sharper angles, so try to give yourself a little bit more lead than you would otherwise. And yeah, I've had a few disasters because I screwed up the launches on a few of those torp spreads, but the big problem with the the Gnevny is the fact that the turret traverse is terrible. You see that I run expert marksman here. Of course, I have the basic firing training, situational awareness, as well as last stand. But on the second slot here, and of course I have the usual upgrades for 1 and 3, I run main battery mod 2. So that gives me better turret traverse at the expense of reload. So it lengthens my reload, but it shortens my turret traverse. So I'm down to 21.8 seconds, I believe, in that range for the turret traverse, and that is a huge help for a ship that would otherwise completely outturn its own turrets. So you'd never really be able to get them on target, and that's a really crucial aspect to the fact that this is a gunboat. So yeah, just something to bear in mind. That's my recommendation, at least. That's its main strength. All these camos look really good. I really like the second one that I just showed you, but of course I run the regular 22,500 credit one right here. Not too fond of the gold one, and again, you shouldn't be paying gold for a damn camo, just pay the credits. So yeah, pretty damn good looking ship, and of course the skin model, or the skin, is by Tans, so check the description, I'll have the link for that. So I just wanted to jump into the training room here, and before I get into anything about this, player panels you're going to see top left and right of the screen. I had been messing around with trying out some different ones, so that's why you're going to see them be a bit different over the course of the video. But yeah, penetrate the side of the Cleveland there, but of course slightest angle, and then it's Mount City, and that's of course the main problem when it comes to trying to use AP as a destroyer. The smaller the caliber of gun, the smaller window of opportunity you have in order to get the shell penetrations and citadels. So if they're at a slight angle at all, you're actually probably better shooting into their superstructure and then switching back over to HE until you get a chance to get a flat shot on them. And of course, if, like in the case of this Furutaka, if they're turning out and they're doing that lean to their side there, and they're exposing their underbelly a bit, that can be a great time to start dumping that AP as they really expose themselves. And again, as you can see, going to take a shot at the Cleveland and bouncy bounce. Now, Pensacola's, on the other hand, juicy targets. So this can certainly get citadels, and I think, honestly though, in my experience so far with the Gnevny, I've only been able to get, I think, the highest I've managed was like 4 or 5 citadels in the match, and that was, yeah, it wasn't a very good match overall outside of that. I don't really find myself in the situation to be able to get a lot of citadels like I am able to in other ships for some reason, and I'm honestly not entirely sure why, but I have found myself going toe-to-toe against more battleships and destroyers than I have cruisers in this, and that's throughout the entirety of my experience with this. It's almost always battleships and destroyers that I end up facing, so kind of curious. Now we get into a fun little situation here against an Atlanta, and before we get into that, check out how bad the dispersion is, which has been a bit of an issue for me with the Russian destroyers so far, starting with the Gnevny. When you don't have a target selected and you fire, you have terrible dispersion. It's just laughably bad. Even on the destroyer, the Zhao is like, looks more like a New Mexico when you fire if you don't have a target selected. And apparently a lot of people don't know that your dispersion actually gets adjusted based off of whether or not you target somebody. So that's just food for thought for you, of course. But the funny thing about this though is, you know, all of us are keeping our distance from this Atlanta, and I'm kind of steaming right in because I'm not afraid of Atlantas up until a certain range, because despite what everybody tries to say, oh yeah, they're such great cruiser or destroyer killers, no, they're not. You have to be very close to them in order for that arc to flatten out. And especially if they're doing full broadsides, if they're doing like a ripple fire, and you know they always have a turret firing, then it becomes a lot more difficult because they can account for various movements. They can just lay waste to an entire area of the ocean, and force you to slow down as you try to maneuver in between it all. So that's again where the Atlanta I think is both strong and weak, is against destroyers. You have to get really close, or if you're a destroyer, you gotta stay the hell away from them, really, and you'll be just fine. But as this match goes on, everybody's kind of meeting up here in the middle, and I'm kind of scared shitless because there's way too many ships here, and I have a terrible concealment range. And sorry, I really just wanted to mention that simply because of the fact that I've seen so many more Atlantas lately, so just something to think about, I guess. But now, when it comes to Russian destroyers and their guns, first things first, what most people are going to notice is that they have a much flatter lower arc than the comparable US destroyers. And that's true, but that does come with a very significant drawback. So if we're looking at the Nicholas, it has a 3.8 kilometer increase on its detection of flare-up when it fires. As you know, most of you, or all of you I hope, are aware, when you fire, you flare up your concealment. Now, the Russian destroyers, they have a 2 kilometer penalty on top of that. So for the Gnevny, it's 5.9 kilometers, and that's the same all the way up to the Khabarovsk. So unless you have a fully spec captain and you have the various modules and all the upgrades and stuff, you're not going to invisifire. So I just want to throw that out there because it's a very important factor in the overall gameplay of this, because, you know, people look at the flat arcs, they'll be like, oh yeah man, I can't wait to start playing these. Well, you better have a lot of ability in terms of spatial awareness and, you know, ship awareness as far as being able to manage your maneuvers, manage your gunnery, and all that, because the second you fire, everybody's going to see you and everybody's going to start shooting at you. So it's just something to bear in mind, because it's I would actually say, so far out of the destroyers that have played, the Russian destroyers are the hardest to get more out of. So, you know, you want to try to stay at your max range and just pepper enemy ships, of course, with AP and HE whenever you can. But damn, these are a challenge, and I'm not being light about that. I honestly do think it takes a lot more when I play an Gnevny, when I play an Izyaslav, compared to if I was playing an Isakazi or a Farragut. It takes more work. Now, if you want to see some tunnel vision, look at this. I mean, this Kirov has just been taking a beating from my little 130mm guns here, and he's just so squarely focused on our carrier that I'm able to shred him. And this is a horrible lack of target prioritization here. I've seen this so much lately. Don't beat this guy, whatever you're doing. It's just really poor play, and all he had to do was turn his guns towards me, turn his bow towards me, and all of a sudden his damage that he'd be taking would go down, and he'd be able to, you know, remove me potentially from the playing field as a threat. And the carriers are a juicy target, don't get me wrong, but you fire at the stuff that's shooting at you. Just throwing that out there, because it's kind of important. Now, of course, that's a guideline. Not every situation calls for every rule to be applied, so, you know, just take everything, actually take everything even I say with a grain of salt. You know, sometimes you can't possibly account for all variables, and trust me, this game is nothing but variables. Like, I could not have expected that this Mitsuki would just sit here, like, literally come to a stop and not really move in any particular direction in front of both myself and Sir Monkey, but I'm trying to get some shots here. I was actually using him just for target practice once I realized he wasn't moving. I'm like, well, let me just test out the dispersion. I'm always a student of the game, and, you know, I found it interesting just to see how the shells behave, and, you know, I do try to hit the front area of destroyers because that tends to be the meatiest area in terms of the easiest to hit. So and Torpedo found that area anyway, so that worked out pretty well. So here at the start of the match on Fault Line, we have, I suppose, a Izyaslav trying to do a hero run. I don't know what the hell this guy is thinking. And, you know, in the comment section, let me know if you guys, since patch 5.5 specifically, have seen a lot more weird shit and weird activity by players, because I certainly have. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but, like, it's not bots, it's just people behaving in an inexplicable manner. Just, I don't know, it's just been really strange. But again, you know, you shouldn't even have to play the game more than once to be able to figure out something like that is not a good idea, you know? I mean, hell, you don't even have to play the game to be able to know that that's not a good idea. But anyways, Isakazi manages to dodge Svetlana's torps there, and he also takes him out. So Svetlana was just off screen to the left, and I'm just railing into this guy. I've got the lead right, and he has his engines knocked out, and I'm just trying to hit the meaty part of the ship again to try to yield the most damage, and you know, obviously secure the actual hit in the first place. So usually, like on the US destroyers, the front clip area, that's where you want to hit from the bridge forward. It's a little harder with the Japanese destroyers just because of the fact that they're a bit more low slung. Now, I gotta hand it to that Isakazi player, and this is why. After I do a sweet little dodge here from the Texas, the only shots he actually fires at me, and we'll get to that in a second, I didn't expect those at all. This guy scared the shit out of me, and check this out. I'm going to find myself a steel beach and hit it, because Jesus Christ, that was close. But, I'm finding new and inventive ways to beach, guys. This is all for you, this is all for science, alright? So, I'm certainly closing in on the Texas here to drop my torps, and, you know, this is, again, target prioritization. He hasn't shot at me other than that first salvo that I dodged just before the torpedoes, and this type of stuff makes me look a lot better than I actually am, because honestly, you don't really get these chances too often with 4km torps, but I'll take it. You know, I mean, what am I going to say? No? I mean, I'm happy to torp an enemy battleship any day of the week. I have no problem with that. So, we're going to go to the match that we had today, the last match in the Gnevny that I played, and This is on Solomon Islands. We're top tier. It's myself and Matt Q 1987 in his Minikaze. And I'm trying to cap B here, and I spend an awful lot of time here to try to get this cap. And you're going to see, if you take a look at the mini-map, I just lost the destroyer behind me here on B, and I've been trying to call out somebody to get in here to push that destroyer off so I can finally cap it and just get back into the game. And the thing is, the longer you invest the time on something like this, the more important it becomes to hold it and actually get the cap. So I couldn't leave here empty-handed, you know, and especially considering the fact that we're already down about 60, 70 points to begin with. So Matt comes in and reveals the guy and manages to start getting him moving, and with this next salvo here, he'll get him cleared off entirely by killing him. So finally, after 4.5 minutes, more than 4.5 minutes, I'm able to finally get back into the match here and get a first base cap. So I moved down to the south. I curl around the island since obviously we had some issues over at A, and there's an enemy Gnevny over here who's harassing the shit out of the Wyoming that's hugging the island. The Wyoming's in a bad spot, and I'm trying to get as many shells on this enemy Gnevny as I can, and I just have a bit of a issue with leading him properly, and you can see I missed entirely with that salvo, and I'm getting a couple hits. I'm just not really lumping my damage enough altogether, and the Wyoming is definitely taking a beating there. Finally gets some hits, he dies, but he also gets the Wyoming. Now, speaking of Wyomings, I like charging battleships, okay? And especially when I have 4km torps to use, I'm gonna do what I can to be in these situations and make something happen. I'm not gonna lie to you, you know, this is a live by the sword, die by the sword type of playstyle that I tend to have with destroyers, but check this out. I was anticipating him pulling hard to the right, and so that's why I didn't launch torpedoes, but see how many hits he nailed on me? The reason why he didn't kill me and do more damage was because the HE was hitting dead modules. So that's where AP has a huge advantage against destroyers. I lost the turret, sure. I should have died to that, but it was because of the module damage absorbing, like being absorbed, like the dead stuff, and he couldn't hit me for any more on the dead turret. Like, he was lucky to have very accurate shots, but if he had AP, I certainly would have taken at least double that damage, if not killed me outright. So that was one of the best examples I've ever experienced of HE not living up to not being up to the task to fight against destroyers. So especially at close range like that, and especially lengthwise, that's just something to bear in mind. So trying to cap B here, and hey, there's another enemy Wyoming. Matt comes over to help me out. We were gonna try to use a bait and switch here, and it did work initially. This guy, though, was further away than I anticipated, and you see there, I get hit in the ass just barely, and I take 4,200 damage. So I get 30,000 damage on him with my first 3 torps and finish him off with the others. Now, we need to get the hell out of here because, one, there's a Karlsruhe coming in, and yes, he's low health, but, you know, and yeah, he is a Karlsruhe, but those are guns that's damage we don't want to take. So I do take a little bit there from his HE, but we're in GTFO mode now because Königsberg is coming back, and you'll see him on the mini-map here in just a moment as we head back to the backside of the islands. So this was very much a run and gun type of keep away game, trying to keep everybody at arm's length. We have the full attention, unfortunately, of the carrier planes who, well, the carrier has all of his planes. I mean, look at those torp squads. They haven't been dented at all. So our carrier just didn't seem to really do the job here, unfortunately, so now we're stuck in a very rough position. Now, the thing is, what I was initially going to try to do here was draw the attention away and, like, kind of head towards the edge of the map. I did not expect this Wyoming to be so prepared in shooting at me, so that was a really big risk, and I lucked out big time there. Now, I was trying to tell Matt to just get some torps off against the Wyoming. It was more important to get him moving, and even if we got 1 or 2 hits on him, that would be great. Unfortunately, as you see here, he gets taken out by the enemy carrier's torp bombers, and he didn't get any torpedoes off. So I was stuck in a very rough situation as I go back to B and cap it, as the Königsberg is most likely coming back, and now there's more torps in the water having to dodge these, and things are getting pretty hairy here. And again, here comes a salvo from the battleship, and he gets another overpen on me. This is all damage I can't afford to take. So the other torp squad drops, and this is curious. I know it must have been messed up by the island there, but only one of the torps dropped, so kind of weird. But I'm running the hell away, and I know the Königsberg is here. Sure enough, he pops up, and I managed to reset when he's about 3/4 of the way there, down to less than around 20% cap. So that actually was a big help, because of the fact that, one, we have 85 seconds left in the match. I'm trying to make this a win, and we only have a 100-point lead. So if my math was right, it would have been a very, very, very close match if he had already gone and capped that. So as you can see, we only have, well, we still have a pretty good lead. I guess it wasn't really in too much of a danger at all, but managed to dodge that set of torps, and I'm expecting the Königsberg to come around here. I did launch torps at the south side of the island in anticipation of him coming out there, and I'm scared shitless at this point, because, I mean, 20 seconds left. My luck this day was really good in most respects, but those shells coming in, you always prepare for the worst, and you hope it doesn't happen, but luckily managed to squeak out a win. So that was by far the best match that I've managed to play in the Gnevny so far, and I look forward to trying this out some more. And like I said, it fits an interesting slot between the Nicholas and the Minakaze. So flat arcs, so better than both the Minakaze and the Nicholas. Really short torp range, not anywhere near as good as the Nicholas or the Minakaze, obviously, but this is a very different ship in terms of the flavor, of course, compared to those two, but it does have a quality unto itself. Just be prepared with these Russian DDs to always keep moving. But I hope you enjoyed today's video though, guys, and I will see you back here for, holy shit, a whole lot more content coming soon, but take care.